Okay, I call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the Elgin City Council on this 19th day of April, 2022 at 6:30 PM. We'll go to roll call. We'll start roll call with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Brasher here.
Amita's here.
Vega here.
Gibson here.
Arriaga here.
Maldonado here.
Callahan here.
Ibis here.
Dennis here.
Let the record show we have a quorum and all members are present. We'll go, if we follow our agenda, next on the agenda is invocation. Councilmember Maldonado, okay?
Let us pray. May your grace cover each aspect of this meeting. We pray that all voices will be heard and that we will have a mindset of inclusivity. May this be a safe place for people to express their opinions and a place where ideas matter more than titles. May everyone be engaged and involved, and may all concerns be addressed. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance, please. We'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Welcome, everyone. Nice to see everybody here. We'll go with public comments. Ms. Stubbs, did anybody sign up to do public comments? Did you say no? No. Okay, thank you. No public comments today. That's very unusual. That's very, very, very unusual. I don't know what to do. I think we're going to sit around and wait, just in case. All right. No public comments. We'll move on. City Manager's report. Tom, if you'll start that.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make a quick update we're trying to give every month about the status of our various CO projects and the CO program that was funded last year. We continue to see great progress on all projects. The first issue was focused on utilities. The biggest part of that project was our wastewater treatment plant. That continues to move forward and on schedule, and look for completion of that project by first quarter next year. As you can see on the other projects as listed, we continue to make good progress. Our generators that hopefully we've made it through the winter without needing these generators, but we'll have them in place by next winter. Our portable generator and the quick connections should be done by the end of June. And on site, the Pistol Water Tank project is the one we received nearly a $5 million grant for, but we're having to follow the GLO process, so that's taken us a little more time. But these first four projects on this page have already been completed. And the Carver Street lift station we're still waiting for notification of a grant application there. On the 21A COs that we're focused on general government, again, we continue to make significant progress in all of these projects. County Line Road Phase 1 should be ready to bid later this month. The Business Park Road and utility improvements are planning and the planning development stage, and hope to start on that project before the end of the year. The sidewalks projects will start hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days. We've already demolished the building, that little building next door to the police station. But these are our major projects that council approved moving forward with last week, the parks projects, and then tonight we're going to make the presentation on our recommendation for the police station. But all four of these projects should start construction this summer. So as we've said, these are exciting times for the city of Elgin. As we talked about when we issued the COs last year, we borrowed approximately $28 million. But between savings, grant money, and developer contributions pooled with that $28 million, the city's we're on track to see $40 million worth of capital improvements in the city's infrastructure in just a 2-year period. It's obviously a very significant accomplishment for the city, but frankly, it all starts with having the resources. So council support for the certificates of obligation are obviously crucial to all that. So we're real excited about moving forward with all these projects. So That's all I had on that, unless anybody had any questions about any of this information.
So what I like about what the city manager is doing is he's continuously updating us on these projects. And don't forget, council, you're gonna go down as the council that made the commitments for these projects. Because these projects have been, many of these projects have been talked about for years and years and years. But we're gonna go down, you're gonna go down as the council that 2 years from now, when you drive by Veterans Park and you see all the improvements in Veterans Park and you see all those young kids and families running around, you're gonna say, I was on the council when we made that decision. And when the large generator that we're ordering for the water treatment plant comes into play, you're gonna say, we were on the council when we made that decision to make sure that Elgin had that when we needed it, as opposed to like the rest of Texas getting caught during the super freeze last year. So I applaud you guys, I applaud the staff. You guys have done a wonderful job, staff, getting us the information we needed to make those decisions. So, do you guys, anybody else want to add any comments to that?
Well said.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to say the staff's just excited as the council. We're anxious to get rolling too, so keep up the progress. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Number 2, under City Manager's Report is the Elgin Sesquicentennial Update and Event Highlights.
Thank you, Mayor. We are going to give you a little update. This is another project that we're going to try to continually give council the update about what's happening, and our contractor that's helping us with this project this year was here at our last meeting, but couldn't wait it out to get introduced. So Amy's here tonight to make a couple introductions, and then we're going to get a report.
Absolutely. So we are, of course, very excited, 150 all year long, and great parties are already happening, and really fantastic things are coming thanks to fantastic volunteers. Your event contractor is Sarah O'Brien, and she is going to come up and let us know where we are right now and introduce to you guys. But she comes to us with a great deal of experience in community development, event management, Main Street development, and previous sesquicentennials. So here's Sarah.
Thank you, Amy. And for the record, I was here all the way until the executive session got called. So I had to gracefully exit because I never know how long those are going to last. It's my honor to be here tonight. Thank you guys so much for investing in your community and celebrating turning 150 years. My nickname in the state of Texas is Sarah Main Street O'Brien, and I'm joking that I'm now going to be Sesquicentennial Sarah because we just wrapped up helping the city of Denison celebrate their sesquicentennial. A little bit different contract, but lots of exciting things happening. I've been on the ground about a month, but some important community reminders and reminders for the council that we kind of wanted to go over tonight. I think that the volunteers are amazing, and I can't wait to introduce Megan here in a moment to you guys. And city staff and the committee's leadership and council's leadership has been tremendous. And one of the messages, we've been so busy detailing all these great events and ways to participate in those that I want to remind folks about that may have gotten lost in all the excitement, is the Sesquicentennial doesn't belong to the city. It's the community's celebration. And so we want to remind the business community and all of our residents that it's really their opportunity to celebrate their city alongside the city council and their leadership. And so pick up your yard signs downtown at Dorothy's or at the Chamber if you haven't already. We've been having some great meetings with local businesses over the last few weeks about how they can take ownership of the Sesquicentennial and incorporate the logo and some of their products and marketing, and you guys will start to see that coming out, especially during the month of August, which is kind of our Founders Month. Be sure to learn about your history. Elgin is who it is today because of everything that's happened in the past. And so while this year is historic, and people will be talking about it for the next 50 years, we want to make sure that we are remembering what's happened in the past. So the weekly stories that are running in the Courier are tremendous, and the Courier has been a great partner, so we're really excited about some special opportunities that will be coming up later this summer. But the Sesquicentennial belongs to the community, and so reach out to me, my email for you guys and the community. I think I dropped off cards for you, but for those of you watching at home, thank you for watching your council meeting, but it's info.etx150@gmail.com. So send me a message if you want to get involved, if you'd like to use the logo on some of your business marketing, or if you need a yard sign and you can't get downtown to pick one up, we'll gladly drop one off. So That's my update. I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you guys may have about our upcoming events and activities. But our plan is once a month for me to come up and give you guys a brief update about what's going on, but really bring the focus onto our amazing volunteers and committee members that are spearheading the various events and activities. And so this month, Ms. Megan Stewart is here, and she's going to talk to you guys all about the Explore Elgin Arts and Culture event, which is coming up on May 21st. So if you don't have any questions for me, I'll invite her up. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Megan Stewart. I'm volunteering with the Sesquicentennial Committee, and I am coordinating the May 21st event, the Explore Elgin Arts and Culture. So I just wanted to give everyone an update on how far we've gotten along with this, because it just keeps growing and growing and growing, and it's fantastic.
Ms. Stewart, are you a resident of Elgin?
Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know, the mayor is my ex-husband. So, on May 21st, we have a series of events planned. First off, we have created an Elgin Art Walk. This is the brochure for it. It's already online, so you can go to the city page and find it online, and it has, on the back page, there's a map of all the sites for the downtown public art. If you go to the web page, you can click on each address, and it goes to a picture and gives you history about each part of the murals around town or the other artwork. So all of that part is done. The cover-
Megan, where do you find this? On
It's
the
on the
web?
city of Eldon,
It's it.
Okay.
atxelgin150.com. And there's also barcodes on here that take you to the city page, to the art page, and to, I think the special events page.
TX 150.
So the events that we have planned on the 21st, the Clover Tiger is finally going to have the new gallery open, which yay. They're going to have live painting, demonstrations, book signings, music, and more from 10 to 6. The Twisted Garage Art Studio, which is right behind us over here, which is at my art studio. We're going to have the Not Your Ordinary Yard Sale, which is going to be art, antiques, vintage, retro, shabby chic, and collectibles from 8 to 3. Right now we have 6 vendors doing that. We're also going to have an artist and makers market hosting multiple artists and makers. I have about 10 of those right now, and that's going to run from 10 to 5. The Methodist Church has allowed us to use the side yard over by the bell, so we'll have vendors all up and down that side as well as my driveway and front yard. Bonnie Grove's Art Studio is going to have her original artwork on her front porch, which is wire-wrapped crystal jewelry, hand-painted gourds, handmade wands, staffs with gemstones and runes, and mosaics. Wild Spirit Artworks, Elizabeth Sullivan. She's going to have her artwork on view at her studio, plus she's going to have a community mural where anyone of all ages can come and participate. All supplies will be provided. There is no cost for that. She is also going to conduct an acrylic war painting class. It's going to be $10 for materials. This is normally a $35 class. There will be registration required for that, so we can make sure there's enough supplies for the event, and that is coming. Remember Me Tattoos is going to have meet the artist and walk-in consultations, as well as several different artist original artwork on display in the store. To the Point, the knife sharpening knife store, is going to have a hammer in. If you missed the last one, it was a huge event in the back parking lot where they had about 10 different vendors making knives or selling things to make knives with, but they had several different live demonstrations there as well. They're going to have live music. The Farmers Market is going to sponsor the Makers Market at Veterans Memorial Park, where they're going to have 20 plus, I think it's about 24 right now, artists, makers, growers, food vendors, and live music. The Mary Christian Burleson Foundation is going to have tours of the historic property and efforts to preserve it, and a live demonstration by artists on sites. The times are forthcoming. There will be guided public artwork starting at the Owl, one from 10 to 11 and one from 4 to 5. And there will be several artists on site during those times to discuss their murals: Ashley Smith, Tom Besson, and Bill Montgomery. At Elgin Memorial Park, it's Kids to Parks Day. They're going to have a yarn bombing the park art installation. If you don't know what that is, all those wooden bollards that they have at the park to keep people from driving into the park will be covered with different decorations of yarn by different artists, and that will be an art installation. They're going to have Chalk It Up that day, and they're also going to, hopefully it will be done, but if not, the Elgin High School is designing a new mural on the pavilion, and hopefully it will be done by then. We're also going to have church tours from 1 to 3. I think we have more than these 5 churches right now, but I'm not positive. There's several businesses hosting specials downtown. Happy Bassett is going to have their grand opening on that day. They're going to have live music, photo booths, and more surprises. And the Elgin Meadery is going to have live music from 6 to 8.
That is a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
I do want to just point out that this has mostly been put on by volunteers and by the artists in the community. It's cost the city very little money to put on this event, and the artists would love to do it more frequently. So,
That's even more
thank you all
impressive.
for your attention.
Sweet.
Thank you. That's going to be quite a fun day from the sound of it.
Yeah, Mayor, this is an event that's really mushroomed. It started out with just a single idea, and just people have just really gotten excited and caught the excitement, and it's really grown, and I appreciate Megan for putting it together.
Good
Yeah.
Is that it, Amy, as far as the Sesquicentennial update? Okay. Tom, if you'll talk about the second quarter investment report?
Well, Misty's going to stand
Oh,
up
Misty,
here just
okay.
in case anybody has any questions. As council's aware, this is a requirement for us to present this investment recap as to our cash situation every month, so it's been in your packet. I think it's mainly if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Misty, did we at one time used to use same period last year figures as well, or no, on this report?
Use what?
Did we used to compare it to same period last year?
No, sir.
No, maybe it's
No,
another.
it's
report I'm
always
thinking
been,
about.
To this
Okay.
point.
We got money?
We have money.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing very well.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, we actually took some out of our main checking account to put it into investments because, of course, you get more interest in investments. So that's why in March, it shows negative up there and such a large increase in our logic account. So I figured that would have been something you wondered about.
Okay.
Yep.
Council, here's your opportunity. Do you have any more questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thanks, Misty. That's all I had on my report, Mayor, unless anybody had any questions about the departmental reports or questions for me that isn't on the agenda.
Okay, if not, we'll move on, council. We'll go to number 7, consent agenda. The consent agenda includes non-controversial routine items that are considered to be self-explanatory by the city council will be enacted with one motion, 1 second, and 1 vote. Any member of the council may pull any item from the consent agenda in order that the city council discuss and act upon it individually as part of the regular agenda. In our consent agenda this week, all we have is, or this council meeting, all we have is the minutes from the last council meeting. Anybody have any adjustments to the minutes? Not, I'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Gibson to pass the consent agenda as presented. We'll start to vote with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Under new business. Is it against the law to end this meeting real quick?
No.
All right, under new business, a A resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, directing the city manager to provide a financial donation to the Bastrop County Long-Term Recovery Team in support of the March 21st tornado recovery efforts and making certain findings related thereto. Tom, do you want to start with you, or do you want to start with the council member?
Just quickly, I did have one thing to add. This, council members Dennis and Brazier had approached me about this proposal, but as we were talking to recently and thinking back, we, of course, the staff and the city responded to this emergency event like we do all emergency events, but in this case in particular, we try to go out of our way to be responsive to particular needs, and I just thought, in addition to this action tonight, it might be helpful to have council recognize other things we've done, like we talked about at our last meeting, waiving building permit fees for anybody rebuilding from the storm. We've already provided an additional $5,000 to the community cupboard. They were greatly impacted in the first couple of weeks since the tornado hit. We've provided access to the rec center for the Team Rubicon group that's rebuilding some homes. We've agreed to host the Bastrop County fundraiser at the rec center, provided pull-off dumpsters for the folks in town that the county could not. So we've done a lot already in response. We're ready to, and have been ready to respond more, but I'll let one of the council members take over the discussion relative to the resolution tonight.
Councilmember Dennis, do you want to start?
I sure will. Back very early in my tenure on the council, one of our big discussions was about the annexation and de-annexation of the residents out on 1704, and there was a portion of them that remained a part of the city, and we provided a lift station out there and garbage disposal service and those things. But this was the group that was hit in Elgin proper that got hit by the storm. There were many others along Monkey Road and up off of Roy Rivers Road. Roy Rivers Road? I'm sorry?
Balch.
Yeah, Balch, okay. Anyway, so we had an opportunity, 2 or 3 of us had an opportunity to go out there and sit with them one evening and just hear, how they had been impacted, and they have insurance, but insurance isn't going to cover near everything that they lost, and they're slow, getting support and that sort of thing. You're out of pocket a lot on just doing some of the stuff that has to be done in order to get up and go on again. And I just thought it was a good opportunity for us to reach out to our community and provide some amount of support. The judge did declare a disaster, weather disaster the day after the tornado, as a matter of fact. And so in support of that and the fact that he's going to have this event here in Elgin, I think it's appropriate for us to reach out and support them in some way financially. So that's what this is about.
Sue, did you want to add anything?
Forrest did a good job of explaining everything. We have citizens and they have needs that just aren't covered. And so we felt like it was best to go this route.
So to make sure that we're all clear on this, council, I spoke with Sheila Lowe, the head of the Bastrop Recovery, Long-Term Recovery, and if we make the donation in the name of the Elgin tornado victims, the money will stay with the Elgin tornado victims, not necessarily just those 4 residents that live in the city limits.
Fine.
But the donation will be used for the Elgin tornado victims. Okay. Do we have any comments about the resolution?
Mayor, can I just clarify a couple points? One is that, as we discussed earlier in the investment report, and we're probably going to discuss later tonight in the budget amendment, I'll just say timing is good for the city to do something like this, that we, certainly just a few years ago, the city couldn't have considered to be able to afford something like this. So I just should say on the record, we can afford it right now. And two, just to clarify, so there's no confusion, as the mayor said, the donation would be to the long-term recovery team in Bastrop County. The city won't be involved in any specific distribution of these funds to anybody. That's really what the long-term recovery team's about, and that's what they're for. So the approach would be to give them the funds, and then exactly how it gets distributed to, we'll have to follow their rules, procedures.
And let's make sure we understand that we're talking about a $25,000 donation.
That's just the question.
And it is to help the victims, not for the fundraiser, right?
Well, it may be included in the fundraiser total.
Okay.
You know, I don't know how that's gonna work. It may be included in the fundraiser total, but it's something that the city wants to do now to get whatever process started that we can get started to help.
Do we have a date on this fundraiser by any chance?
It's, you know, council member, it was originally scheduled for the 30th of this month, and there's a problem with that, so the judge will let us know real soon what the date is that's been changed to.
Thank you.
And I think rather than wait for that event to happen, we want to go ahead and fund this to get it in the hands of the people.
Yeah, I've just had to follow up the mayor's comments. I don't know, but I guess I've heard that they haven't gotten the donations they were hoping for to this point.
That's correct.
So, so it might help them to get them this money sooner than later.
And get moving.
Okay, if nobody has any further comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I would like to make the motion that we make this contribution as proposed.
$25,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, so the motion has been made by Councilmember Dennis, seconded by Councilmember Callahan to approve item number 1 under new business as read and discussed. We'll start the vote with Councilmember Dennis.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes.
Ramirez, yes?
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes. Ibis, yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. All right, here we go.
Mayor, just one other thing, follow up. I want to thank Arthur for really reaching out to those folks out there. I mean, he was out there a couple times before we even got out there, and so I appreciate what you did.
Thank you, Councilmember Gibson. Okay. Item number 2 under new business, a resolution of the City of Elgin, Texas, approving the schematic plans for the new City of Elgin Police Department station and authorizing the staff to proceed with implementation of the construction manager at risk delivery method for the final design and construction of same, and making certain findings related thereto.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got a kind of a team presentation that we're here to make tonight about the new police station. And I can tell you from the group standpoint, we're very excited. We're very excited. We're at this point in this process, and we've got an opportunity to move forward with a project that I think everybody in town is very much interested in. So we've got the team and different people are going to speak. But I wanted to give a little preview or start our conversation. Remember that this is a project that we've talked a lot about, and I kind of want to go back over some of the issues we discussed when we first started this project and first started the very discussions about it. And it's important to understand where we started because there were a number of limitations relative to this project from the beginning. So truthfully, that ended up making some of the major decisions for us that typically you'd have to make on a project like this. So the good news is some of those decisions were kind of made for us by the circumstances, and it really helps us move forward very quickly on a project like this that we might not otherwise be able to. But those issues, those decisions were made by, frankly, limitations to what our goal is and what this project will be. The first thing to keep in mind is from the very beginning, we agreed with the resources we thought we could afford, and the facilities, the opportunity we had to build, that this is not going to be the 50-year police station. This is really a project to bridge us through the next 5 to 10 years. Our team has done some very good analysis about what we project our growth and staffing to be over that time period, and we think this project that we're presenting tonight should serve the police department for hopefully 10 years. But in the meantime, frankly, that'll buy the city some more time to do more in-depth planning about a bigger, more robust, longer-term, true police station, justice center type project. And it also buys us time to get into a situation financially where the city can afford something bigger and broader to serve the city as it grows to 50,000 people. So that's one thing to keep in mind as you hear the presentation. I remember we're trying to work with what resources we have, build the project we can. Now we plan on it being a 50-year city building. The city will use this building for a long time. It's just the police station will likely outgrow it in that 5 to 10 year period. The site location was another thing that greatly restricted, frankly, a lot of the analysis and decision making. The council decided early on that rather than in this climate and the additional time it would take to build a project like this, to not try to go out and buy 5 acres of land somewhere and truly plan out, again, a very long-term building. One, I think we all know availability of land is a real challenge right now. And two, again, that would be very expensive, especially when you compare to the fact that what we're proposing to build is on a site we already own. We know its ability to hold a new building, so a lot of analysis, a lot of research, a lot of work that would be required to go to a totally new site, or we're able to kind of skip over that process and get right to the project. But again, the site itself, the size of the property limits our location. I would say too that when we began talking about this with council, most were, not all this council, but we also had the discussion about similar to what we had with City Hall. We'd sure like to keep City Hall and the police station still downtown. And again, to build something big for a 50,000 population city is probably going to have to be out on the highway or somewhere else. But again, this will tide us over and be able to have our police station downtown. The other part too about the limitations of the project that frankly makes it a little easier for all of us is the specific limitations of this building versus what, again, you'd see in a more typical police station or justice center, and that is there'll be no jail cells. We're not accommodating any communications operations. We presume to continue our relationship with Bastrop County or maybe Travis County for communications. And when you talk about a justice center, that goes into having a new court, having a new courtroom, a new court building. And again, we see that as being the next building, but not this one. So this project is really focused on police operations. And again, each one of those items, jail, communications, court, require a whole different level of security, safety, building management that with this project we're able to avoid. And again, all those things that I've talked about already, timing is really crucial for us. I think everybody knows. Well, if you've seen our current police station, you know we're probably 20 years behind getting a new one built. But it's only in the last couple of years, again, that with the growth of the city, that we've been able to develop resources that makes this affordable. But again, it is a true issue of employee safety and security right now. The building has asbestos and other issues in it. So we need to try to move as quickly as possible, and that's something you're going to see in this project tonight that we think we can do. But one thing I want you to keep in mind tonight, we're making one presentation about a recommendation from our building committee. We got through the process, however, the initial phasing of the process, and we're guided by the $3.5 million that we had earmarked out of the 21A COs to fund this project, and came to the conclusion that if we were compelled to stick with that 3.5 million number, we could not design and build a building that the team would recommend. We have a professional obligation to make sure that this effort is worth the time, is worth the resources, is worth the money, worth the investment. And basically, as Brian will get into later, the numbers came down to build that building, it would be about 11,000 or 8,000 square feet. And after we reviewed it, we all agreed we just couldn't in good conscience recommend that small of a building at this point. So what you're going to see tonight in some ways is we moved up to what you might say is the minimum building that we think we can recommend that will work for the police department. And we have a scenario where we can fund it, but it's 12,000 square feet, about that. So we had to add the space. So again, it just came down to a number situation, but we'll get into the budget things later. We had a really good teamwork on this project. The project that you're going to see tonight is unanimously recommended and endorsed by everyone that was on our building committee, including the EPD management. And we even reviewed the plans with representatives from the Historic Review Board and the Main Street Board, because obviously it'll be downtown, we'll have to meet certain restrictions with that project, and they've endorsed the project as presented as well. And part of that is, as you'll see in the design, we've done it in a way that will fit really well with our Veterans Park project across the street and with the Post building project that we're remodeling right now, or rebuilding as we speak. So tonight we're going to go through first a very detailed presentation by our architects at GMA. They're going to run through the analysis and present to you the project that we're presenting tonight. Then we're going to talk about financing plan for that project, and then run through the basic next steps for the construction manager at risk. So unlike things we've done before, I would recommend that you try to kind of hold your questions to the end, because I believe this has been a very comprehensive process that the staff and the police department, the city engineer, and our architects have engaged in. So where you may have questions, eventually we'll get around to, we may answer them in the process, because I don't want to claim that we've thought of everything, but I feel pretty good about that we've gotten a lot of great input from the department. We've had a really experienced architectural team focused on police services, and so we're just really excited about moving forward. So first up, I'm going to introduce Brian Mead here, closest to me, and then Bob Galloway. You may remember Bob hidden in the back at a couple of our council meetings. And then Carl Treminsky's on the end, are all from FGMA, and have worked with us very closely. So, but I think Brian's going to take over the presentation.
So let's see, to advance is, here we go. All right, well, thank you, Tom. It's really great to be here. We've had a great month and a half so far working with the city, and everybody has been great. Chief Noble, Commander Curtis, Commander Krim, all the staff have been really helpful and super collaborative in this process. So again, I'm excited to be here before you. This is the building type I love and work on all the time nationally. I'm from our Chicago office, and Bob and Carl are from our Austin office. So we're super excited to be here tonight. So we're just going to go through, I won't try to get too deep, but as Tom says, we've been through a lot in the last month and a half. So I just want to run you through our process so you see kind of our methodology of how we got to where we are today. So staff and space analysis, any space needs study and project always begins with that. So you want to understand, you know, the current conditions, both physically the building and the staffing and the spaces. So, you know, we kicked off the project right away with a couple tours, understanding the building and the conditions and the really tight confines. We have a survey document that the core team at the PD really took sincerely and put a lot of great content into that in terms of what they foresaw as some of the challenges with their current facilities and operations and how a new facility and what their priorities would be for that. And then we followed up with that with some really important interviews where the chief and the commanders really helped fill in some of the gaps of what that was in terms of their needs. So that led, and I know the text is really tiny here, but we wanted to start with the staffing projections. So current authorized strength is about 33, or it is 33 staff, even though there's some vacancies right now. We did kind of a 5-year projection and a 10-year projection. So it was really clear to see all the potential growth that your community is going to hopefully see in the future, that the staff, especially in patrol and detectives, could grow realistically in 5 years. And so you can see from 33 to 59, that's almost an 80% staff increase. That's pretty realistic. Again, mostly between patrol staff and detectives, but you know, as those two groups and divisions grow, there's a span of control where eventually there might be another sergeant, or there might be a patrol lieutenant, or a patrol or a detective lieutenant. So it was easy to quickly see that in the really tight 4,800 square foot that they have today, that if you are going to grow an 80% staff just in 5 years, I mean, there is no space. There's no extra offices, no extra workstations. They're just trying to fit in that extra detective right now. So it's very, very tight quarters. Then we did a 10-year projection as well. And we said, well, if the city keeps growing, how might those staff positions grow more so? So that 59 projection could potentially go to 86. So again, that's almost 160% increase in authorization today. So all of that is to say that, you know, any new building is great, but we've heard so many clients, I mean, you don't want to go into a building, even if it is all new construction, and be pretty much at capacity from day one. So I think that was one of the first findings, that when we went from that staff projection, we moved right into our beginning program. And we started with 2 columns here because we knew that, as Tom said, we went into it very realistically saying, what can we do for that $3.5 million? How can we come up with an option 1, which is maybe that 5-year solution? You know, as Tom said, we know it's a bridging project, so can we get close to that 8,000 square feet in a 5-year solution? And then we said, let's do a 10-year solution option and see, well, how much more space might we get if we can accommodate those staff increases in patrol and detectives and, you know, all the other positions. So to cut to the summary, it was about a 5 or 6 page program where we went through their surveys. We really, literally, line by line, we laid out every office, every workstation, community rooms, meeting spaces, interview spaces, the kind of holding and processing, the proper chain of custody if you're doing proper evidence storage. And we went through all that and realized that even with the 5-year staffing projections, we were over kind of 79, 8,000 that we thought might be that original target. So we were immediately over about 1,000 square foot over. So we were maybe 8,900 square feet. And even that 8,900 square feet had to make a lot of sacrifices. So it's a balance between, you know, you want to have safety for all staff, you want to have safety for your community, but you also want to have some opportunities for shared spaces, shared meeting spaces, collaboration spaces. And we couldn't really find any way to do that in the 5 years. So there was a strong goal to have a shared briefing room, a training room, and a community room. A space that you can honor staff when you have swearing in ceremonies or promotional ceremonies. And if any of you that have toured the building, there is no such space like that at all. So we moved to the 10-year solution and said, well, if we try to get a few more spaces for 10-year staff and some maybe larger collaboration spaces, or I should say really one single larger space for 25 staff, and then maybe 1 or 2 shared conference rooms, what might that look like? And so again, it was a couple weeks of back and forth, really great dialogue between everyone. And by the time we worked in the community room, we were up to about 13,500. We're like, wow, okay, so that's a lot. That's a lot more. You know, that's almost getting double, not quite double what we started with the 79 to 8,000. So what we're gonna show you today in terms of plans is what we think is a really good happy medium or compromise. You know, are we down at the 8,000? No, but we're definitely not at the 13,600. So there's been a lot of great give and take prioritizing. You're gonna see plans today that are in the 10.5 to 11,000 square feet. And so I think the whole team agrees that that's probably a nice balance between giving some of the shared community spaces, shared offices, shared training spaces, and really good spaces for evidence storage, and even just proper, even though it's short-term holding, it's not, you know, detention grade CMU walls and detention grade plumbing fixtures, but still to have male and female and juvenile separation and bringing them in a safe and secured manner and not walking them right by patrol officers who are having lunch and, you know, all sorts of bad cross flows that happen today. We think that we're excited about what we're showing you today. So moving from that, once we have what we call the program, that's a great foundation to start with the diagramming. So we started looking at all sorts of GIS maps, you know, we're understanding, you know, all the topography that a lot of the blocks in Elgin, you do have the sort of the grade challenge of how do you get from your parking space up a couple steps to that sidewalk. So we know that's going to be a challenge. But one of the goals from the get-go is how do we make the Elgin Police Department more welcoming, more friendly, more accessible. And so we wanted to make sure that when we did that, that it would be able to ideally be inviting and walk up right on grade. Whereas any of you that have approached the building today, you know, there's a whole series of steps that you have to get up the front door, and you can't even really park. There's a couple spaces in front, but it's really not the most inviting facility. So we definitely got our bearings and understanding of the local site. And then we've also, with Amy and Molly and the whole group, we've been quickly learning about all the great projects that you're doing right now and how the park just across the street is going to be such a great influence of the design of this building as well. So it was great to get up to date on these graphics and again, how the block to the north on Depot C, how that might start to really have a nice civic face fronting this enhanced park. So we wanted to understand that. And then we also looked at, in the last month and a half, there has been an evolution from the renovation addition to an all-new construction. And just briefly, some of the things that drove that, I think early on, there was a priority list from your survey, which really highlighted a lot of important goals. And not only was it a strong focus on operations, you know, can we get most of the operations on the first floor, where it's much more functional, it's much more efficient? Can we get up to 25 parking spaces on site in a secured setting? Because all over the country, unfortunately, there have been some tragedies where unsecured parking lots have been compromised and officers have been injured or even killed. So trying to get a secured parking lot, 25 cars, a lot of operations on the first floor, and at the same time, how can we get as much civic presence on the street as possible? So we started that with the, you know, renovation addition. But a couple things we realized quickly was, you know, you're not going to get as much frontage because the renovation is a very narrow, long building that goes a far way back. And you're also not going to get as much of that good flow in operation because at some point you're going to have a new addition which is probably going to be a couple feet lower than the first floor of the existing building. And so when you think about elevators, ramps, stairs, there's a little bit of an inefficiency of trying to transition from the new entry and the new building up into that existing. So we gave it our best shot. We did an existing renovation, a new addition, really creative floor plan, and then we also did a 2-story stacked new building right next door. And we had a really good meeting a week or so ago where we compared the two, and when we started to realize that the price difference might not be that much more, all the different benefits that you could gain in the all-new construction, not only did you get, you know, all-new construction, which meant, you know, better durability for a 50-year lifespan, you got better frontage on Depot, you have better phasing, meaning you're only moving once, so you're not having to move in and then temporarily take another 6 months to renovate and then move some staff back into the renovated part. And then we also felt that it's a much cleaner process for anyone bidding because contractors that are going to bid this project realize, oh, this is a one-phase, all-new construction project. It's not as messy with the do this and, you know, it's got to be attached with the elevator and stairs, and there's a bunch of unknowns. Whenever there's unknowns with renovation, it might get more expensive. So we had all these great conversations, and when we realized that the cost difference between all new construction versus the hybrid might not be that much more, it really gave the momentum for our team to then really start to look at leaving the current building alone and doing an L-shaped building right across from the park that would pretty much span almost to the whole building. And there's maybe about a 20 to 30 foot gap, which would have a nice landscape wall and architectural wall landscaping. But it really gave the operations, it checked so many of the boxes that we think is gonna really not only be the bridging solution for the next 5 to 10 years, but it's really gonna serve the community for that 50-year goal when it takes on its next life. So I just have 3 quick slides here that I'll just go over high level, and of course, if you have any questions at the end, we can come back to these in detail. But again, the site plan sketch here highlights some of those most important goals, and that was getting at least 25 on-site parking spaces. You can see kind of the dashed-in perimeter gates here, a secure fence that would sort of butt into the back of the Polk building, go all the way here to the existing building. Trash, would have access from the alley, and then you have the really nice frontage here that we could really focus on the new sidewalk, the new parking, and an entry that would not be foreboding if you had to go upstairs or if you had to go down to the block to go up the ramp. So we wanted to make it as accessible and inviting as possible for that site. And again, because of the entries on the south and the north currently, this can totally stay in operation during construction, and the new building might be just a couple feet off the foundation, just to make that a little bit more easy for construction. High-level sketches for first floor and second floor. Again, this solution is about 10,500 to 11,000. There's still kind of a range there. But we just color-coded some of the high-level planning. So again, most of this, almost 75% of the program is on the first floor, which is just fantastic for operations. So I'll guide you kind of to the sort of the middle here of the L is the public entry. And that public entry in the lobby has a lot of important functional things sort of pinwheeling around it. So having a citizen report kind of intake room, having a restroom that you can get to, having the counter, having, if a victim comes in, having a soft interview room that also not only abuts the lobby, but the detective suite. All of that is happening right in the middle. And then in blue, what you see in the corner is that really important shared space that has at least 3 functions. It's a briefing room for patrol, it can be used for training, and from time to time, it can also be used for community events. So we have it in sort of a secured area where you can't just really get to it, but it's a great contribution to the project. Going back in yellow is some of the more secured items. So if somebody was brought in for processing or booking, they're brought in a covered Sally Port area, and very quickly they get brought right into that area, unlike today where they have to go down the hall and maybe past patrol officers or other people. So they're brought right in there, which has much better adjacency. It's much safer for the rest of the staff. And then you have just below that, you have the evidence processing bag and tag area there. So again, really good flow. And then the rest of this lane on the first floor is the detective unit right behind here. So not only do they have their safe and secured suite, but they also have access to an interview suite where you have the hard interview room, a soft room for victims or family members, an interview restroom. And all of that is going to be properly arranged like any state-of-the-art police department would be. And then patrol functions would be immediately behind that for the offices, the report writing stations. And then at the far end of the building are your support shared spaces. So shared restrooms for the first floor, a shared break area for staff and some lockers, and some important shared conference rooms, which again are very lacking in today's building. So that's the first floor. And then the second floor is pretty much just a couple thousand square feet, limited to police administrations. And again, you have police administrations in blue. You have a police administration conference room, which can also be shared. And that was important not only to have that first floor shared room, but a second floor shared room where if there's a Chamber of Commerce meeting or Main Street meeting or something where that was available over lunchtime or during the day, the public could be allowed up to that room without compromising any other department building. So it's really important in these public safety facilities to find ways to have proper separation between secured and unsecured areas. So we think, again, in this 10.5 to 11,000 square feet, this is a really good in-progress solution that's been supported by the police so far. So that's the highlight there. And as we move into just a couple final slides, which is really about the context that led us to our initial elevation sketch, I'm going to turn it over to Bob in our office, who's going to talk about that in a couple minutes.
Thank you, Brian. The advance button here is,
Yeah, just touching it.
okay. Again, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a fun several weeks to go through this process. I really particularly want to highlight the input that we've received from Amy Miller and Molly Alexander and Jamie Crawley as well, just in terms of what a wonderful opportunity is to do a project that's so important and so integral to the fabric of downtown, and will play just a key role in filling the whole community district right in the downtown area. And so the input that we received from them has been really helpful for us as we've moved through this process. Some of the design factors are pretty obvious as you begin to look at the building and the solution that Brian highlighted with the slides. What we're trying to do is be very much a part of that downtown area with the design concepts. And what I mean by that is we've taken the building and pulled it to the very front of the property line of the site, just like most every other downtown commercial retail building is. We've located the parking around behind the building so that it's less visible, much more secure, much more direct in its access to the building. You'll see in a minute some of the materials that we'll be using for the building is be a mostly brick masonry building. It'll have a lot of the feel and character that you see with a lot of the downtown buildings, and there's some slides here that we can, you can just be reminded of some of the context. As Brian highlighted, a portion of the building is two-story, a portion of the building is one-story as it fronts along Depot. And so that's also indicative of, you see a mix of single-story and two-story buildings up and down downtown area. Most of those buildings are single-slope roof buildings where the pitch of the roof is away from the facade of downtown. That gives the opportunity for a higher parapet. And you see modulation up and down that sort of keys us into each of the various retail establishments and so forth. So we've taken a lot of those same characteristics and tried to fold them in to our building. And of course, it's a single building, it's a single operation, but as Brian pointed out, there are different groupings or departments within that building. So we've allowed some of the variation in the parapets and the massing and the plane of masonry and so forth to be representative of the distinctions of some of those departments. The challenge, and here's a sketch from Jamie. This was done some time ago, but we were able to see this sketch and kind of understand some of the forward thinking that was part of the planning process at the time, and that was very helpful for us to understand that. One of the things you'll notice that it highlights there here, this being the suggested elevation for the new station. Really, one of the biggest challenges that we face here is we're fitting in a building to mostly a retail, commercial downtown, and yet it's a civic building, and so it's a singular civic building. So we can use some of these design techniques to represent and give some distinction and modulation to that. But it is a civic building, and while retail wants to have a lot of glass, a lot of transparency, a lot of very inviting presentation to the public, there are certain portions of the police station that will be that and want to be that open and inviting, but there's also a lot of portions of the police station that need to be very secure, very hardened, if you will. And so how do we introduce windows and glazing that kind of straddles those priorities of fitting into the downtown and yet being very appropriate for a police station, and then ultimately maybe just a city building. It needs to be able to transform itself and wear both of those hats of fitting into the fabric of the district, but also being clearly a civic building. So I'm accidentally touching the screen here. Let me move forward. So this is a elevation along Depot Street of the entire block. And so you see the Courier building on the far right and the current police station, and then the large gap, and then the POP building that's under renovation at the far end. And as Brian pointed out in the plans, the right side of the building is the two-story portion of the building with a lot of the public spaces on the first floor and a lot of the administrative offices up on the upper floor. And then the rest of the building has a lot of the patrol functions and the detective functions, and those are kind of expressed in the modulation of that. But we've also introduced some elements that are very civic-minded in their presentation, very much a part of the municipality in the form of a canopy that kind of unifies the entire elevation of the structure. The flagpoles, there's a memorial piece that's already part of that site. Certainly that would want to be honored and be integrated very carefully into the overall flow of things. That's it. We want to talk about money.
I have to do that. Just want to mention a couple things. We're going to come back to these numbers here in a minute. I've got a different slide for that. And maybe we'll come back to the schedule. Do that. Just a couple things to follow up on what Brian and Bob were saying. Now, what we're proposing here is, again, is a new building, a completely new building, and not renovating the existing building. And that was part of the journey we went on, where once we realized what the minimum building we'd have to recommend, that didn't come through in the conversation, and we figured out a way we think we could fund that. Then the natural question got asked, well, if we can afford that, then why don't we just build a new building? And that's why we went down that path. And there are a multitude of benefits from doing a new building, as Brian mentioned. But for us, operationally, a huge one, frankly, is the PD will be able to continue to occupy the current building until this brand new building is done. What we were going to do with them operations while we were renovating the existing building, we still didn't really have a workable plan for that. So when we realized that if we could come up with a financing plan to build a new building, that was clearly the best approach for us for a lot of reasons, and frankly helps us avoid costs associated with moving and temporary occupancy and different things like that. So and also the design of the new building. You know, the building we have, and what really spoke to me is realizing if you've been down there, it's a long, narrow building, and there's basically room for offices on one side and a big hallway. That is obviously not a functional use of space. So as Brian said, they came up with a great plan to provide a more functional space. It's actually smaller in square footage, but being able to design it from the ground up made a huge difference for us. So this is great. And I want to say this is this is a good example of when the architects actually listened to the client. That was the thing we stressed in the beginning, and this group has been very, very responsive to us that way, and so we appreciate that. But one thing that I want to make clear tonight is, so what we're proposing is that basically part of this discussion, part of this project moving forward is we don't have a specific plan for the existing building. We don't have the money to renovate that right now, but it's, by all accounts, by everyone's assessment, it's a building with good bones. We just put a new roof on it. It's technically occupiable now. We could use that for spillover offices for the city, or frankly, we could do just what we did with our other building and make that available to the private sector. I assume some people would like to have an apartment right right next door to the police station. So the possibilities for that, I think, are really big as well. But we're not attempting to solve that issue now. That's kind of a phase 2 project that council and staff will decide later. But so basically, what we're proposing is we'll kind of warehouse that building and talk about it over the next few years to figure out what the best use for that building is. With that, before we go into the financing, I just thought it'd be appropriate to have Chief Noble make a few comments about the project. We got really great cooperation, participation from our command staff, and I know they're all excited about this project. And I've not always been successful in getting 3 cops to agree on anything, but Aaron and Gina really provided some great input on this as well. Chief, you said a few words.
He told me to keep it short, but he didn't define that, so let's get on with it. And I think important to say that, that we are so excited at this time. We're on that precipice of having something new, and the unanimous decision that y'all made to get us a new building is very exciting, and we're all very happy and very pleased. I don't want to use the phrase of, well, just give us anything because it'll be better than what we have now. However, being able to sit down and decide what it is that will be functional operationally and give us not everything what we want, but certainly it gives us what we need. And with all of our suggestions and input, Brian and the team said, thanks for all the input. But I'm sure that every time their emails dinged or their phones rang, God, not again. And with suggestions and changes, and they have been so incredibly receptive. And they build police stations. That's what they do. And so they've been very, very helpful with telling us and helping us with what we don't know that we need to know about building a police station. So at the very least, we need a healthy place to work and to get out of that building and as soon as possible. And this alternative gives us that. And then it's really neat, and I think it's pretty cool that the city gets the added value of that building for use in the future. And yes, it's not the 50-year building that we would like to have, but there again, we're not asking, we're not getting everything we want, but we're getting what we need. The most important thing about this building, and I'll speak up, and that has been the challenge for the architects, is the flow of the building. Just using the square box that we had with either the old building or just building, the square box out on the front. That was so very limited with safety and security of the operations. And that is a paramount importance to us. And so when the prisoner comes in, everything, it just flows naturally. I would like my office actually to be downstairs as part of the main operations of the building. However, we have to compromise, and that is, administrative offices go upstairs. We are actually increasing our parking spaces by removing that old barn building around the back. So that then puts us now. Who would have thought that by taking away parking spaces and moving things around, we're actually increasing our space. And so that helps us for the future. But, and then finally, I'll wrap it up, is this concept with the design, it makes us a valuable part of the downtown facade and being a good neighbor, but more importantly, that we're not a disruptive neighbor. And I think that's important, and this gets us where we need to be. So that's all I have. And just again, thank y'all for this opportunity. This is this is neat, it really is. Thank you.
I want to, again, just thank Chief Noble for his leadership, Commander Krim, and Commander Curtis. We knew going into this that if there was big division and disagreement amongst the department, that would be problematic for us trying to move forward. And so not only did they work well together with our committee, the chief did something I'm not used to in the fact that he shared the information with all the rank and file. And usually chiefs want to take the lead on things, and in this case, we got positive feedback, and so we feel really comfortable saying today that it's virtually unanimous support from our entire police department, not just the 3 top ranking officers. So, you know, it's kind of a risk showing everybody or sharing our plans, but that's what we wanted to have, and wanted to have the right kind of teamwork, and that's what we have on this. And I want to mention too that, as you might imagine, as far as the officers and not getting everything they wanted, we started out, of course, our main goal was to have a big honking exercise room and individual lockers. And, you know, they make lockers now that have individual dryers in them where you hang your, you know, you got to be a fireman also, I think, to have a locker room like that. But we saw some pretty fancy things, and the staff was amongst the first to be willing to sacrifice those things to get the right kind of building we need here. So that's the project. We want to talk about money now and our financing. As I mentioned earlier, we, as the council knows, we set a placeholder in our CO program of $3.5 million for this project, and the project we've shown you tonight is a current cost estimate about $4.7 million. We think we can close, we're proposing that we close that gap through the utilization of part of our ARPA funds. These are funds that we've talked with council about before that the city has received, but it is, I appreciate President Joe writing us that check, but the process has been a little confusing and unclear today as to the specifics about what those expenditures are eligible for. So they, in some ways, are very restricted. At the same time, we've not been able to get a lot of clarity about what exactly the funds can be used for. So, and that coupled with the fact that, frankly, again, the city has not experienced any shortfalls recently, has allowed us the benefit of allowing money to stay in our fund and not be spent to this point. There are very specific rules about what you can't spend money on, but I think if you've followed the news like I have, there have been plenty of cases where cities have spent money only to have to pay it back later because they spent it the wrong way, and it's a typical, I'll say, kind of typical federal government thing of nobody will tell us, yes, you can use those funds for that purpose, but they also won't tell us not to use those funds for that purpose. So we were left to do our own research, and the finance staff and our grant administrator looked into this, and we feel very confident in telling you that there's a big focus on public safety, obviously, with these dollars. And the specifics of the rules do say that we can use those to enhance public services for capital improvements. This is a safety issue for our staff. The money we would use is to close the gap between, as we've talked tonight, about a substandard project to building the best project that we need. So when we talk specifically about the ARPA funds, the city has actually was awarded, meaning that we've been approved to receive just over $2.5 million. To date, we've received exactly half of that. That's the way the funding flows, and the other 50% will come this summer. So we have in the bank right now just over $1.2 million of ARP funds that are not committed. that we're proposing to spend on this project. Interesting enough, those APRA funds, Misty found out that, believe it or not, they came back recently and said there was some money left over because some cities didn't bother to apply for it. And I will say for the record, we applied for a whole lot more, but this is the amount we got. So we thought we were getting a second round, a big bonus, but it turned out to be $2,500, so we're still trying. So the project as presented tonight proposes this type of funding. The construction cost, as was shown earlier, breaks down in this manner with almost a $200,000 contingency, including soft costs and furniture and fixtures. It's just over $4.7 million. Another item that won't make a whole lot of impact on this situation, but the chief came up with today, if you recall, we've got about $28,000 in the opioid settlement was our share of those funds that we've received those. It would be an eligible expense to help us out on some furniture and fixtures, maybe some better exercise equipment, things like that for the project. So we have that funded a little bit as well. So what we're proposing as a budget, it's important to understand the approval tonight is just to move forward on the next step of the project. A vote to approve the resolution tonight does not make any commitment about funding in any way. It doesn't make any commitment to this plan. But what we're showing you tonight is a project that we all endorse, that we believe will serve the PD for the next 5 to 10 years, that we all agree upon, and this is a way to pay for it without increasing any cost to taxpayers or residents. We're confident this ARPA money is eligible for this use, and it just so happens to be almost the exact amount we're short on the project for what we're to receive.
Is that a coincidence, or?
Yeah.
It is
That's great.
Believe me, I started them out at a lot lower number, but they kept pushing. So that's the important part of that. This is literally cash we have in the bank today. We're ready to start. There's no more issue with financing as long as we're in agreement to use those funds. So that's tonight's action, is simply to allow us to proceed forward on the next step for the construction manager risk process. What I presented here is a funding scenario that will work, obviously, for us. But just so we know what the next steps of the process is, we haven't done a CMR project here, a major project like this previously, but after the council, if the council approves what's been presented tonight, then FGMA will move on to preparing final documents that are necessary to then go out and secure bids from CMAR teams. And then it'll be another bidding process like normal. It'll submit bid packages. The building committee will then review those submittals, conduct interviews of 2 or 3 that we select, and then we'll make a recommendation. That committee will make a recommendation on which team to pick. And at that point, the final decision on that will come back to the city council. The council will authorize the preferred candidate and authorize negotiations to move forward with that candidate, and then we'll sit down with them and work on a guaranteed not to exceed price for the project. It's at that stage that the construction manager at risk team then engages in with our team with engineering plan adjustments, suggestions. We'll be engaging more about issues we're dealing with now with supply chain issues, staffing, timing. It's a big collaborative effort than when we reach that point where the construction manager helps us hopefully build a better project for the money that we have invested. But then once we get that negotiated down, the CMR, there's a contract, they have a specific price, not to exceed that contract, and as specific as a plan as we'll have at that stage, we'll come back to the council for final approval. Just keep in mind, what we talked about before, I liken the CMAR process is really more like how we all build new houses. The conventional way for public buildings is to spend years developing a very specific plan and then bidding that, and you have no flexibility in that plan. What CMRAR does is bring everybody together with the same common goal, is to build the project at the right price. So all throughout the project, like you do in a new house, you're making decisions with the contractor's making suggestions about how we might save money, how we might achieve a goal a different way, and so you're working together through the whole process. But unless we make substantial changes in the plan, the contractor is tied to deliver that building for that price. So there'll be 2 more bites of the apple for the council, but frankly, we've carried the ball as far as we can, and we're asking for approval tonight based on what you've seen, to move on to the next level. So, with that, that's the extent of our presentation. I'd be glad to circle back, answer any questions. You can ask anybody up here any questions or comments you might have. Thank you.
I'd like to start out with thanking the building committee and obviously the architectural company for all the hard work that they've done. I am a little disappointed in the price, but I'm not surprised. I mean, we knew probably realistically that it was going to be, especially with construction costs and with all the supply chain problems, et cetera, that it might be more than what we were thinking it was going to be. I can't think of a better way to spend 50% of our Rescue Act money than on a building that we so terribly need. I am gonna make a little comment, and I'm no expert at how a police department is supposed to look like, but it seemed like to me like there's way too many meeting rooms in that plan that y'all are talking about. I don't know why in the world we would need so many meeting rooms as y'all were discussing that y'all were building. And this is just my opinion. I don't know why, because a meeting room is used occasionally. I mean, I would want to use that space for something that's used every day. That's just my opinion on that. You had like 3 or 4 different meeting rooms and whatever else in there. Just my opinion. Council, do you have any other comments or questions that we might want to bring up now? Council member?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering, in the 5 and 10-year projections, is the population projections, where are those coming from? Are those same as you're presenting to the city as far as the growth with the new developments?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the criteria we use.
And so how long realistically do we expect to use this new police station? I know it's not the 50-year plan, but are we talking 7 years, 15 years? Do we have some idea of?
Yes, your guess is right. I think we would say that we're confident, even if growth happens quicker, that we can make it work for 10 years. I think if the growth slows down, it could last a lot longer than that.
When we said that, when the council and the staff got together, we said we wanted 10 to 15 years out of this building.
So I think it's, and truthfully, it's like I said, we don't know where the city's gonna be 10 years from now. If we grow like that, and we have business, frankly, resources might be available that, cities that have around us, that have great facilities like this, they're not smarter than us. They just have more money than us. So yeah, I'm comfortable, I don't know about you all saying, I'm comfortable. It's planned to, even if things explode, I would think 5 to 7 years is a minimum that we get out of it. And, keep in mind what we've lived with for as long as we have. We can make it work, but I think it'll be more about, as much about what can we afford in 10 years versus, so much of it being cheaper.
I was going to say that regarding future growth and to specifically address your question about the meeting spaces, that those of us that have worked in government all of our lives and have had to make do with where we are working at, that things change. Government, you know, the direction of the government changes, and who knows, in 10 years, it may not be on the table for a new building. So those meeting rooms, those become offices. That's where the growth gets accommodated as well.
Yeah, I'd say that too about the meetings. Remember, we designed this for a police station, but at the same time, it's always in the back of our head that as you can see this layout, it can still work very functionally for a lot of different parts of the operation. So in 10 years, if the PD does move to a new station, it won't take a complete remodel of this building to turn it into regular office use for us. Brian, do you want to speak to the meeting room thing? I do know in the police business, courtrooms, courthouses, having a series of individual private rooms so you can separate witnesses and talk to people, that's really.
Yeah, Mayor, I was gonna say, well, one thing what Chief just said as well, that we try to. So, trying to have spaces that can do double or triple use, as the chief said, in the future. So that's exactly one of the things I was gonna say, that depending on how quickly the growth comes, some of the sacrifices they did make was the office for a future patrol lieutenant or detective lieutenant. So those smaller conference room sizes are just about that size where it could become an office for one or potential shared office for two. The other thing, when you see meeting rooms, and you know, maybe you were looking at some of these smaller ones near the lobby, or maybe this one, I mean, there's such unique functions. So a shared conference room can be used for interviewing candidates. It can be used for the detectives. If you have a major case where you're trying to lay out evidence, you're trying to secure that for a couple days, and you don't want it out in the open. There's so much valuable use for those different types of meeting rooms. The meeting rooms that are around the lobby, again, you might have a case where you have, you have a victim, you have a family member, you have a suspect that are all in the building at the same time, and it is so important to have proper separation of those. And so some of those rooms, and these are just sketches, but they're not, some of them are 100 square feet, maybe some of them are 150. So it's really very much driven by the proper operations of these unique building types. So that's just a little bit of going into why some of these buildings or some of these rooms maybe look like there's an abundancy of them. So it's because of the function, and again, as growth happens before the next building is maybe available, those rooms can obviously turn into offices or storage or other things like that as well. So, okay, thank you. Sure.
We didn't mention that we're building an elevator here. Is that the first elevator in Eldon?
No.
No.
We built the first elevator in Kyle. But part of this design is, again, with this hallway, is again a secure situation. So actually the public, if they have a meeting on the second floor, the public can come in here, get on the elevator, go upstairs, and still be secure from all of the areas. So that's part of the plan.
That's right. And even one elevator can have two sides to it. So there's sort of a public-facing side and a back side. So no two sides would be open at the same time. So even though the public might just be buzzed into the public front side, the staff, if they want to take the stairs or elevator up and down, going back to command staff and down, they can do that completely safely in a secured setting and not worry about potentially crossing paths with someone that they maybe just gave a ticket to or something in the lobby.
Thanks.
So,
Councilman, I was just back to your point that, the end response to that is, it's true about everything we're doing now. I just don't know how fast we're going to grow, how trying to keep up with it. We don't want to go too far ahead of it. At the same time, it's all about the housing market. As long as the houses are going to get built and people are going to buy them, we have to plan for that. But it's tough to actually project. I assume at some point we're going to hit some high point and come back a little bit growth-wise. I mean, everybody, not just Eldon, but I don't know. And again, as we've talked about a number of times, in our situation with Tesla, basically bookend between Tesla and Samsung, I think there's the overall market in Texas and in the nation can
I was gonna say, to follow up on that, you know, I know you mentioned the 50,000. What your projection are you?
I'm not.
Okay,
Projected
because I
a
saw
year.
the 35,000 on the 10-year projection
Yeah,
on
for
this.
all I just said, I wouldn't presume to have the data to project what that means real number-wise. You can get estimates from builders, but I consider them more sales goals than based in some reality about what the numbers are gonna be. So when we talk about 50,000, that means we've got 10,000 homes already approved to be under construction combined with our population. I think it's not too hard to see how that could turn into 50,000 people.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dennis, did you have something?
Yeah, I have two things. I want to answer your question quickly. There is a house on Main Street that had a 3-story elevator.
Pope, let's go back to Pope.
All right, well, wait a minute. That's a private residence, so that doesn't count.
There you
And
go.
actually, the O'Connor building has an old elevator too.
So,
ACC.
anyway, we digress there, but I would say as far as conference rooms are concerned, it's just, I know, working in a corporate environment, when the company I work for finished out, this great new office space for us with all those collaborative spaces and all that, there were empty seats that, for future employees, but there were conference rooms everywhere. You'd go down a walkway and there'd be 4 on either side and all. And then they put all those conference rooms on a scheduling system, and you could not get a conference room weeks out. And so they wind up getting used for
That's
many
not
different
what a
reasons.
police department is for, though. I understand your corporate,
I think there were a lot of collaboration.
What I make clear is that this is the plan to provide the basis to start forward, but still plenty of time to make tweaks like that, and we'll take a look at that.
let me ask you, you probably said it and I just didn't catch it. What's gonna happen with the old police department building once the new one is built?
Well, the mayor and council decide that at the time.
Okay.
I think,
So it's not gonna hold any police
no, that's part of the benefit here.
unless the council decides that that's what it should still be used for?
I guess, but really, what we're proposing is a building that we move the whole operation to, so, that goes right to timing and construction, as you might imagine. Now, we don't have to relocate anybody, we do think, and Bo's pointed this out as well, the fact that it's, as Brian said tonight, that the totally new building will probably attract more contractors than if they knew they had to somehow attach it to this older building and renovate it. But that building, our plan is that building stays in the exact use it's in now until the community's ready to move into the brand new building. As Brian said, there won't be any partial moving, they'll move all at one time. But as soon as they vacate, then unless we come up with a plan between now and then, it'll be vacant to that point. But again, I would say that's it's another example, frankly, of resources. We don't really have the money right now to do anything with that building. But and again, we got this from HRB and the Main Street folks. Turning that into a private use and selling it to somebody else is certainly something to be on the table. But renovating it and keeping it for city use is a possibility too. But that's it's important we don't confuse the two. We're not suggesting, I'm glad you asked for that clarification, because what we're suggesting is we don't know what we're gonna do with that building once we vacate it.
Council? I think the building looks good. I mean, the proposed architecture looks really, really good.
Are we gonna fix the alley in the back?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, that's another part, frankly, that, since you brought it up, I'll say it. Depot Street out front, we're gonna have a brand new park on one side and this two brand new buildings on the other, and we hadn't put it in the project, you have to repave that street, so we need to get that included. Certainly the alley would be obviously an obvious correct time to redo that alley as well. So yeah, that's the problem with building something brand new, then you make everything around you look worse than you didn't realize. When everything looks crappy, it doesn't seem as bad, but we'll have to make those improvements as we go.
So, looking at the numbers, it said, what, 86, it could accommodate up to 86 personnel in this building? Is that all at one time? Is that what we're talking about?
I think that's all staff, that's not.
Yeah, no, that's.
Okay, we're
that's
talking about
total.
shifts and everything? Okay,
24/7 operations is kind of.
gotcha.
Yeah, I guess to that point, there's never a time where everybody's in the building at the same time.
Catastrophic event, never know. So this
Well, they can
building.
go across the street and meet in the park if it was.
In this projected plan here, we're talking 10.5 to 11,000 square feet, about a little midpoint from, kind of what we were talking. Chief, I know you mentioned a fitness room, a larger fitness room facility. What else would you have liked to have seen that is not currently on this plan here?
Other than the fitness room, a large training room as well. And that is one of the reasons that we're specifically asking for a large kind of a training room where we can host training sessions and have outside departments come in.
Okay.
And because what that does is, when we host the training, we get it for free. And so it's a nice thing to do, and it makes us a good neighbor, good partner with all the surrounding agencies as well. But a weight room or a exercise room that can be smaller in nature within the building, and or a larger training room where we can, not just for classroom training, but if we're doing like defensive tactic training where you have the pads and the mats and things of that nature as well. That would be ideal. It's good for wellness, particularly in this day and time. That's one of the more notable things that are being accommodated within the police stations. And the architect team, even really grilled us on that. Are you sure you want to give that up when that is one of the things that is really kind of necessary? However, in order to achieve the flow and the ultimate operation, the daily operations, that's one of the things we had to think about cutting. It was a tough cut to make. Yes, sir.
With the existing building, after everybody moves into the new one, isn't there a chance maybe future council could vote some dollars that direction and turn that into a training room and some of that other neat stuff that's missing?
Why, yes.
I guess I would say
The
that's
reserve
part
first
of
right of
the
refusal.
issue of, again, not locking ourselves down on what we have to do with the existing building.
Yep.
I wanted to get back here a little bit on the schedule. We're, part of this project, or what we're presenting tonight, is we think, well, I guess you say, I think we can be in this building by the end of next summer. It'll probably be more like fall, but we've got a chance to make something happen really quick. To have a new building like this done inside of a year and a half. But we'll have all that time to think about what we're gonna do with the other building, and plus, other needs will arise that way, and ideas will come forward. Scott, you have some?
Yes, so your group's obviously in the business of designing plans and whatnot for police departments. I'm assuming your group has had a similar situation with all the potential growth heading this way in such a short period of time, and maybe they had to build a PD. Did we look at those smaller towns that were gonna grow to a larger population in so little time? Did we look at similar cities as well on designs and what's needed, what's not needed, things like that?
Well, I think we knew from the get-go that there was limited funding and that this was a bridge project. So I think as Tom said in the very beginning, we kind of had a directive to say, okay, with this limited site, because you have to remember as well, the site is an important issue. This is just a couple, really small downtown site.
Right.
Even other regional cities that might be growing fast, if they're gonna build new, they might either have more money or they have larger sites. Because this project is listed in interest at the beginning, you're gonna need 5, 6, 7 acres, probably closer to the highway, to really do that next generation project. So
And truthfully, Scott, I think they're not gonna say it. I don't know if this is the smallest project you've done, but your presentations, they've done much larger police stations and so have that experience. But again, I just think it's, in my experience, it's, in the situation we're in, from a growth standpoint, it's just really tough to say where we're gonna be in 5 years. How many people are gonna be living here. And of course, that's what's gonna drive public safety on both ends, is how many people are living here. And sure looks like a lot are coming.
Right.
But we won't know that for sure until we get closer to it.
I'm okay with the little more office spaces because it's a bridge and we're gonna grow from, so transitioning them to offices, I feel is the right direction. I appreciate the fact that hopefully no more bats will fly out on my head or any other person's thing in there, which was, my claim to fame at the other one. We're real good about making things last a whole lot longer than, so that's why I'm totally okay with those spaces. And we do have a rec center for training if we want to save money too.
That's right. You know the staff games, so we say, oh, I don't know if we'll be able to make it that long, but we'll figure it out. I mean, Elgin always has, obviously. That's why we're in this situation. That's why we're building the first police station in the 150-year history of the city of Elgin. It's because, the city always figured out a way to make it work in the past. But as we've talked about a lot, the city of Elgin, I don't know that they ever had the resources that we have available to us today. So that's, I feel like it's part of our obligation, responsibility to step up and provide something better for our staff and for our citizens like this that we can afford. So we're, like I said, we're, questions about the layout, questions about different issues are something we'll still be talking about as we go. Again, that's part of the CMAR process. This is the basic layout. This is what the budget is predicated on. This is what we're going to move forward. But some of the items we're talking about here, we've still got plenty of time to make adjustments that way that council will feel more comfortable about. So.
I just got a few more things.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. It was looked at, you said, I know that the current PD and the design for the new police department are gonna be separated. And you said it was looked at potentially combining the two, but there was an issue with that, or we just had limitations because of our budget? Yes.
Yeah, we started out with that idea to combine the two buildings.
Right.
And as we got into it, that frankly was always our plan. But once we reached this point where we realized to build the building, to build the project we have to build, would get up to this 4.7 number. And then that's when, appropriately, the comment was, well, for that much, we could build a brand new building, and here's all the attributes of building a brand new building. And it does make it a whole lot more functional. That's why we could live, we actually get as much operational space needs addressed, actually with less square footage, because we can design the building this way, and that's what the chief means when he talks about flow.
Right.
That rectangular building really compromises the design. So, and then all the other issues we talked about, how are we gonna move people in and out when we're renovating? How can we, there's gonna be some resistance, I think, on some people's part of how contractors attach in a new building to an old building. What's the liability with that? So we were talking about $30,000 or something for temporary space, portable buildings, or $140,000 for portable buildings. So when you start adding up all those things, and in the end, we got a much more productive project. That's when we decided that. So we were, frankly, the first half or more of our analysis was all predicated on adjoining the existing building. But it's when these other issues came up, that we realized that the better approach was the brand new.
Gotcha. And then, just final, so moving forward tonight is just going off of the, what is it, the 4.7, the funds put in place. However, we can still make changes to what we currently are being shown on these plans, whether it be minor, whether it be major, or kind of minor and meet in the middle. What are we talking here?
Well, I would say that, and Bob, I don't know, Bo, you want to jump in on this? The next step is to go to finalize these plans and put a package together where we can accept bids from contractors. So we can't do that and then make major changes in the plan. But the adjustments we're talking about, taking out a conference room and turning it into the exercise room or another office, yeah, those are things that we can do kind of on the fly. Now, the other part too is, remember, once we get the CMR team online, they'll have suggestions too about maybe better ways to do different things. So again, there's tweaking, but again, I think for tonight's action, to me, the council needs to be accepting of the cost and generally the budget, be accepting of the schematics you've seen tonight, the floor plan, and the elevation drawing. Because the next step is for us to move on to serious proposals about
Right.
exactly what we're gonna build. Bo, you got anything to add to that?
I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, essentially what we're trying to do is give the contractors enough to do a good basis on this cost. So with this layout, yes, you could shift over some walls here and there, but there's a certain amount of HVAC that they know is gonna have to go into this building. There's a certain amount of electrical that's gonna have to go in, sheet rock, so on and so forth. You know, later with the CMAR team as it comes together, it's gonna be like, well, are we doing Formica countertops throughout, or are you going with granite countertops throughout? You start getting to some of those finer decisions. They're gonna have value engineering, some things that we haven't thought about, or we haven't gotten far enough into the details and the weeds of the plan, where they say, hey, this is a value engineering we could save if we do this versus that type of deal. So those finer details will still be worked out throughout construction as construction is going on. Supply chain is getting better or it's getting worse, certain items are more available, prices are going up and down. Story for today that I'll tell you with contractors, it's just as cheap to weld steel pipe together as it is to buy PVC and do joints, if you can imagine, when you're laying it down. So those things are in constant flux throughout the entire of this project. But in order for a contractor to sit down and say, can we build this with this budget? This is kind of what we see of how that's gonna be, and these are the kind of, costs that we're building in to get to that budget for this particular, floor plan. And it gives you an idea, but it will constantly have cost checks throughout the entire project. There will be those decisions to make to say, are we gonna cut here and add here throughout the thing? But at a minimum, in order to even move forward, you have to be to this level of detail, and you've seen some of that just from, we had a square box and we said this many square feet, X number of dollars per square footage is what we thought something might cost. And just bringing in the details, the number of rooms and stuff, it'll continue to get refined and refined. But the idea is essentially to come back to council, say, this is someone who can build this. In general, this is what you're going to see done, and those finer details will play out.
I'm sorry. And the ultimate goal here with the new way to build things is a not to exceed price, right?
And again, as Bo said, when you get to that point, what's different about this from other public project is the contractor's actually in there with you saying, no, you can't afford that, you have to do this, instead of saying, sure, just give me a change order, I'll do anything. And that's why public entities like this, because the whole team, after they commit to a guaranteed price, they're obviously gonna hit that price. And so, it's a good process, but it doesn't give you that finality of knowing 3 months before you bid it, here's exactly what it's gonna look like. But in the end, it ends up being a better product for the city all the way around.
And do we have, besides what's being shown today, that's, kind of been drawn with like a Sharpie and different colors, do we have like a different plan on paper, or is it just pretty much what we've been shown?
No, this is the schematic.
Okay.
And again, that's the next step. We'll have to move on to the specific building plan.
Okay. That's all I got.
Are you sure, Councilman?
No, I'm sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry about. I'm very impressed.
And there's no asbestos.
But hey, actually, I mean, you gotta review SDS sheets to verify
Don't
that.
get him started on that.
Council members, do we have any other comments, questions? Do we feel comfortable about what we're talking about here?
Mayor, I feel comfortable that PD staff as well as the architect have assessed their needs, and so they tell us what they need. If they need 20 conference rooms, then that's something that we should probably consider and trust that they've identified their needs. And I think in the future, if council's going to change anything, I think a lot of that's going to be based on just cost, and Tom's explained pros and cons with that over time, but I appreciate staff really taking the time to assess their needs and presenting that to council.
Okay. Okay, if council, if you feel comfortable, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Who made the motion?
Skylar did, and I'll second.
Sounds good.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Maldonado, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher to approve item number 2 under new business as read and discussed. Let's start the vote with Councilmember Maldonado.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, yes.
Dennis, yes?
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes.
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Woo.
Yeah.
Let's go to item number 3 under new business. An ordinance of the City of Elgin, Texas, amending the amount of appropriations for the general fund as well as all other funds that provide for the payment of operating and capital expenditures, and by changing the amount appropriated for various departments of the city as originally adopted by ordinance number 2021-09-21-27, adopted September 21st, 2021, in accordance with the local government code of the state of Texas and the ordinance and rules of the City of Elgin, Texas, appropriating the various amounts thereof and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for publication and an effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our main kind of mid-year budget amendment to, as council knows, the budget is a target and a plan, but once you get into the year, some different changes occur, and in the end, this exercise is important because in the end, council has to appropriate technically all the money we spend, so that's why we have to make these adjustments. So Misty's actually got a little presentation she's going to make and then be able to answer any questions.
Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew just what Mr. Mattis said is it is a routine exercise. There's, it's nothing nefarious or, there's generally a mid-year and an end-of-year budget amendment if needed, just to make sure, because we don't know about emergencies or, the economy, fuel nowadays. We didn't realize we were going to be paying $1.20 more, a gallon. So these type of things. So we're just adjusting for those type of expenditures. And also, I just wanted to point out that our general fund nor our utility fund, the fund balance, is going to be affected. They'll wind up going up according to what we're thinking. Any type of movements, we're not drawing down on fund balance, is kind of what, the savings account is good. So for our general fund, I just wanted to highlight the bigger amounts. So our revenue thinking it's going to increase about $500,000, and that's contributed to sales tax. About, I think it was about 9% more than what we budgeted for. Development service fees, of course, we're making a lot of money on that. Our grants, we received a parks grant and library grants, so those weren't accounted for at the beginning of the budget because we didn't know we were going to get it, so we're adjusting to that. And council in December had approved the $100,000 for the 150th budget, so that's what the interfund transfer is we're going to be pulling it from another fund into there. So our expenses are going to increase about $400,000. And I highlighted what the big ones were. The first one is the city manager, city secretary's budget. And that's because of the legal fees we had to increase due to the litigation that's going on with the city. And also for research on open records requests that we've been doing. So we had to increase that about $25,000. And then also city secretary, there again, because of all the open records requests we've been having, she found a software that would help track it and process it more smoothly. Yeah, she's a good girl. She deserves something nice.
So she's to blame for that then?
Sir?
She's to blame for that?
She is to blame for 10,000. So that's the expenses for that one. For planning and permits, since we have not been able to hire the inspectors and the other positions that David wanted, though we're paying a third party still. We can't do anything about that until we actually get the staff in who can do the inspections and the reviews, and that, there's staffing shortage everywhere.
So are we actively looking for?
Yes.
Have we decided that that's the direction that we're going?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been budgeted, yes, sir. But of course.
Tried to recruit for
Yeah,
6 months.
yeah, it's been difficult. Of course, the numbers look like, it's 158,000 for planning and zoning, but there again, look at how much development service revenues come in so that it offsets it, it washes it out. Of course, community services, that's 150th funding that we gave to them. Pool repairs, long time coming repairs that was needed. For police, the internal service fund, I missed putting some vehicles in the original budget, so this is just correcting it since to account for vehicles, maintenance and such that'll be transferred to interfunds. Inter-services, sorry. Anyhow. Public Works and Admin, this is just a correction. We had an employee who was in one department and truly he should have been budgeted another. So it's just moving money from one department to another. So, all right, this is utility fund. Here again, we're gonna increase, we believe we're gonna increase about 300,000. At bottom line, sorry. So revenue, 430,000, which is increase of water service application fees, aqua wholesale water that we believe we'll receive up until whenever we start changing over to we take it, and wastewater treatment capacity fees, which is a new fee that the developments have to pay to help with the wastewater treatment plant.
Misty, before you go any further.
Yes, sir.
The Public Works Administration, where you said one person was just budgeted in the wrong
Yes, sir.
line item or wrong department or whatever.
Yes, sir.
So that means we're going to see a decrease.
Correct.
The appropriate decrease in whatever wrongly.
Yes, yeah, on, if,
Okay.
yes, in the
I just
detail.
want to make sure.
Yes,
Okay.
sir. So expenses will increase about 86,000. Utility administration due to engineering fees, water operations and wastewater operations, it's maintenance and repairs, things you can't plan, pumps going down, whatever else happens out there in Michael's world. This is just the special revenue fund summary for hotel, motel, Main Street, cable, court security, Leo's, water impact, sewer impact. So we've had an increase in court security and technology fees that we've received, so that's why the revenue's up in there. Sewer impact, well, we've had a lot of money in there, so interest is increased. The notable expenditures is hotel motel fund. It's pulling that 100,000 out to move to the general fund that you saw earlier. Main Street, there was requests to increase for some hog eye expenditures and consulting fees. And water impact is for meters for the new areas. We're allowed to buy meters out of our water impact fees for the new development. This is for our other special funds, EDC, TERS, Internal Service Fund, Employee Benefits, Equipment Replacement, Debt Service. Revenue, so of course, increase in sales tax, both sides, general fund and EDC, both get that money. Internal Service Fund, the revenues increase. It's just how things hit. I don't want to confuse anybody, but whenever you're debiting, like with the police, I debited their account for the vehicles that I forgot to budget for. So of course, it's going to be a revenue increase on that side. So that's what that means. Equipment replacement, part of the savings that they got for the generator, because it costs less, they decided we wanted to buy a truck to pull it. So that's what that is. So that's money that's going to be moved into there from the bond to cover that truck purchase. Okay, so debt service, there was a decrease in property tax, which is the same as general fund. I think it was like 2%. EDC, we had to increase that expense due to Owen's new employee, because they had a part-time employee prior, and then now he has a full-time employee, so cost's gonna be different. Internal Service Fund increased for maintenance on vehicles and fuel, so we had to increase that expense line item. Employee benefits increased for unemployment insurance and equipment replacement, and there again, that's the truck for vehicle costs and the generator, the truck to pull the generator. So I had a list of questions.
Misty, then the overall recap is all the increase in expenditures are covered by increased revenues.
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes.
And overboard, really. This
Oh,
is-
yeah,
our
over more
performance here
than
is-
what they were.
When we talk about putting the budget together and being conservative on revenues and lean liberally on expenditures, that's how we're able to end up in a real positive flow and have this kind of flexibility. But
Yes, sir.
no issues, no problems.
No, actually, we're
These are
quite
administrative adjustments for the most part, and our revenue flows.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and it's really, and this city, and I don't want to say unique, because I know there's multiple cities that have this, but in their charter, in your charter here, it's where you are going to see every little tiny little maneuver in the departments. But the prior two cities I worked at, their charters those are covered under internal, just internal transfer. So when a department head would just like, I need money here, so you just move it around in the departments, and council handles just the larger ones. So this is like a everyday, thing, because we can't. There's no crystal ball. There's no, we're just taking an educated guess, trying to make it look good, make it work. So I have some questions that were sent to me from the mayor. Want me to go through?
Yeah,
Okay.
but before you do that,
Yes,
let me
sir.
just say that, and I talked to Tom about it, reviewing this mid-year, I was real pleased with the staff. I was real pleased with the budgets they submitted, the budgets that we approved, because in most cases, most of the departments are well within, a little bit above or a little bit below what their budgets have been.
Correct.
So I was real impressed with your staff and your department heads did a really, really good job of thank you.
Yeah, they did. Okay, so the mayor sent me a couple questions, and I know I probably went over some of them, and I probably spoke really fast through them, so I will read the questions and then speak a little slower to get the answers for them. So the first question, he was curious on the page 1, general charges for service, like what did that mean? And basically, we just set our revenue in categories, and the general charges for service, it's just a grouping of these basic fees that don't go here or there, the alcohol beverage license, solicitor's permit, open records. It's just a catch-all, in a sense, grouping of random fees, charges that we do. The second question was also on page 1 about the increase in the city manager, city secretary. It's Jennifer's fault. No, yeah, the increase there again for the lawsuit against the city manager and all the open records requested, we've had to pay legal already for, and then for the software. And then about the engineering and the IT, the engineering part is the emergency preparedness plan, and it's just being, since it was such a broad thing and it had to do with like public works and whatnot, right now it's just being charged under the city managers.
What page am I referencing?
Oh, page 1.
I'm still on page, okay.
Okay.
Oh, this is still.
Yes, sir.
city
Yeah,
manager,
this is the
okay.
second, yes, sir. And about the IT items, that's, we're preparing for scanning. We have a company that we send our bunch of documents to, and they scan it and book it and have it. So it's just preparing for that. The third question was also on page 1, and it was talking about planning and zoning and public works increases due to unplanned additional staff. If not, why the increase? And it was basically we're having so much going through on planning and zoning. We're doing a lot. We're paying ATS and the fire inspection place, just a lot for stuff that we can't do in-house.
But as we talked about that, all the staffing is no net gain.
Correct. Yes.
It's funding transferring back and forth, but
Yeah.
the council approves staffing in the budget, and if we're ever gonna hire a new employee that's not in the budget or approved, that has to come back to council.
Correct. Yeah.
So these changes are just swapping back and forth with
Absolutely.
no net impact.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Very little,
And then, of course, for Public Works, it was the position that was budgeted in streets that should have been budgeted in admin, Public Works admin. On page 2, the next question, it was like, why did we originally only plan 1,000 for fire inspection fees? It was a new fee, and I took a guess. That honestly, that's the only explanation I have, is I didn't realize the funding, how much revenue we would get. That's why it was like a 700% increase or something to that effect. Also on page 2, what are arrest fees? So when a police officer writes you a ticket, there's automatically, and you have to appear before the court, that's part of that is considered an arrest fee. You might not have been arrested, but it's a fee that everybody who has to appear before court and they have to pay the ticket. It's just a little like $5 that we get to keep. As long as it was our police officer, we keep 100%. If the state boy pulls somebody over and gives them a ticket and they have to appear, then we have to send the state 20% of it. So that's what the arrest fees are for. The next question on page 11, the dramatic difference between inspection service, original budget, and amended budget. There again, no staff to do the inspections and the reviews, so that's why we had, and we've gotten a lot more.
So we should have budgeted.
Well,
lot
we tried,
more.
yeah, we tried to budget thinking we'd have people, but then, of course, staff is cheaper than paying a third party for reviews and inspections, so we were thinking, all right, we're gonna have somebody, and we didn't. So that's why it does cost a tremendous amount more having to outsource those reviews and inspections than having somebody on staff to do it. The next question on page 18, the internal service fund employee benefits listed had a 100% increase. Honestly, when I first read that, I was like, oh, it must be, I thought it was a EAP, something I'd missed, but then I looked. There again, don't make fun of my Excel spreadsheet, but it's an Excel spreadsheet. So whenever I entered in another line item, I copied the formula, and basically it was just 100% that just copied down. It should not have said 100% because there was no increase.
That's what I was trying to.
Yes, sir, yeah, so no, it was absolutely my error. So on the other question on page 19, what's the reason for the $60,000 library temporary agency services? What we did was we have a new employee. Not really, it's a temporary employee, I know, I'm just kidding. Tom's like, shut up, Misty. No, do you want to explain?
No, our librarian resigned her position, and so we have a contractor in here now filling in that position, so it,
Correct.
again, it'll be this cost for the contractor, but it'll be offset by salary savings for the
Yeah.
position being vacant.
Yeah, we just pulled money out the salary and just dropped it into the other line item. I think those were all of Mayor's questions, so I'm ready for anybody else's. Yes, sir.
I'm just wondering on, the city website, like the links keep on changing, that for fiscal year 2021, 2022, it's just the proposed budget, not the actual budget.
Let me check into that. I apologize. It should be on there. I will have to check to see.
Is that,
What that is.
is that,
I
you're
don't-
looking at the city manager's page?
No, I'm the public.
Well,
Yeah.
we do put the proposed on the city manager's page, because that's what the city manager proposes, but, yeah, typically, we need to circle back and put the final in, so.
Yeah,
that's
and it
just
should
the
be
oversight.
on there, but I
Well,
apologize. It's
it
not.
used to be on there. It keeps changing. That's why I'm
Oh.
Well,
wondering.
Let me talk to
that may be
IT.
an IT issue.
Okay, and the other thing, I noticed is, like, there's a link for the notice of, public hearing on tax rate increase.
Mm-hmm.
It's now a dead link where it used to be,
Okay.
active, so.
All right,
Well,
yeah,
that-
no.
That's an oversight, too. There's,
Okay.
as you know, there's no hearing right now.
Right, yeah, but I was gonna say.
But we shouldn't even have
there's-
that on there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we'll check into that, absolutely.
Thank you.
Council?
Mine was the 100% thing.
Okay.
Thanks, Ms.
Thank you, Missy. Council, if there's no other questions or comments, I'll take a motion to pass item number, or I'll take a motion on item number 3 under new business.
So moved, Mayor.
I second.
Okay. Motion has been made by Mayor Pro Tem Brasher, seconded by Councilmember Vega to approve item number 3 under new business as read and discussed. We'll start the vote with Mayor Pro Tem Brasher.
Frazier, yes?
Ramirez, yes?
Vega, yes.
Gibson, yes.
Arriaga, yes.
Maldonado, yes.
Callahan, yes.
Ibis, no.
Dennis, yes.
The motion passes, 1 negative. All right, we will now be going into executive session tonight. Council, do we have any announcements?
Relay for Life
Oh, Saturday, or no, yes.
and Project
Project
Celebration.
Celebration is also Saturday. Relay for Life is Saturday, is that what you
Yeah, here at the City Hall.
Okay.
Music in the Park Friday.
Yes.
Lots of things going on.
Which have been very, I don't know if y'all have had a chance to go to Music in the Park on Friday, but they've been very well attended.
They really have.
Yep.
I was surprised.
And
Any
that's
other
every Friday
announcements?
through May.
Say it again?
It's every Friday through May.
Okay. Any other announcements? Yes, Matthew?
We have collected, as a Rotary Club, we have collected a lot of materials to give to tornado victims or other people that are in need, like tornado victims. And so Friday night and all day Saturday at the Church of Christ, we are giving it away. So anybody that feels a need or has a need, please come by and take some
Okay.
things.
Are you advertising that somewhere?
Yeah, on Facebook, but I don't know
Okay.
that it's getting a lot of play.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause I hadn't seen
And
it.
what sort of items do you have?
All sorts. If you come into the lobby of my office building, you'll be amazed. It looks like a second Lions Club, kind of. It's really,
All right.
Any other announcements? Council, do we have any other business to discuss? Not, I'll adjourn this meeting at 8:43 PM. Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff.
And you said this was gonna be a short meeting.